Africa, welcome to the Africa Desk Live. This platform was built for you. Not for governments, donors, or foreign interests, but for you, the African citizen who loves this continent, even when it breaks your heart. And here is your host, Semantics King Jr.
Welcome to the Africa Desk. This is episode 10 of 54 conversations, one country a week, 54 weeks. And this week we are in the Gambia. It is a country of roughly 3 million people wrapped around a river entirely surrounded by Senegal, except where it meets the sea. It is the smallest country on the African mainland, and 10 years ago, it did the largest thing ever. In December 2016, Gambians voted out a man who had held power for 22 years. And when he refused to go, they held their nerve until he went. The world covered that story, then left. What I want to do this hour is the unglamorous part, not the night Jammeh fled to Malibu, but the 10 years since, what was built, what was not, and what Gambians themselves actually say when somebody bothers to ask them about it. Welcome, and this is the Africa Desk Live. Let us know in the comment section which country, which city, wherever in the world you are joining us from. And our guest is in studio, please. But before I bring him on, I'd like to ask each and every one of you to be respectful of our guests and ask us questions appropriately, and then be respectful even if you disagree with what the guest says on the show. Again, this is the Africa Desk Live. It is a platform that is built for the African citizen, you know, and anywhere you are on the planet, we try our very best to reach out to you. Before we go to our guests and to the discussion, we want to do our regular Around Africa segment. This week on the continent, one milestone we want to showcase is ECOWAS changed hands in Freetown and a Gambian walk off the stage. At the 69th Ordinary Summit on July 19th in Freetown, Sierra Leone, General Barham Diop of Senegal was appointed president of the ECOWAS Commission. He takes office on September 1st this year at the conclusion of the 4-year mandate led by Dr. Omar Aliyu Toure of the Gambia. Senegal's Bassirou Diomaye Faye was elected chair of the Authority of Heads of State and Government for a 1-year term, according to succeeding Julius Madabao, who is the Sierra Leonean president. The second episode is that Africa became the epicenter of global hunger on the record. The UN released the State of Food Security and Nutrition in the World 2026 report this week. It estimates 645 million people went hungry globally last year, and that 2/3 of Africans could not afford a healthy diet, while more than half face moderate or severe food insecurity. Global hunger fell by almost 14 million compared to the 2021 figures and by 43 million since 2022. But Africa now carries the largest number of hungry people on the planet. In Dakar, Senegal, Dakar 2026 hit 100 days out. The Youth Olympics open in Senegal this October, the first Olympic competition ever held on the African soil rather. Around 2,700 athletes will compete around 25 sports at various venues in Dakar. Dakar was chosen as host in October 2018, and the games were pushed from 2022 to this year because of the pandemic. Organizers restored existing sites rather than building venues with no use afterwards. And Zimbabwe's Christy Coventry, the first woman and first African to lead the IOC, will oversee them. And in terms of countries celebrating their independence, this week, actually tomorrow, there's a full independence for Liberia. On July 26, 1847, Liberia gained independence. So tomorrow, Liberia turns 179 years old. For all Liberians who will be celebrating this day tomorrow, we bring you love, peace, and honor. Happy Independence Day to all Liberians around the globe, in Monrovia, in Ganta, but more especially here in the state of Minnesota, where we have thousands of Liberians living. And then now back to the show. Um, one piece of housekeeping I'd like to bring to your attention before I bring my guest is that, and this is very important. I have to tell you this so you are aware of it, because based on experience from a Rwanda episode, from South Africa, and other episodes we've had here, we want to be able to say this every week. This hour, this particular hour, which is the first hour, we have two guests. One is a woman, the other is a man. That is not a preference we have. It is a rule we set for ourselves, and we try our very best to keep that rule. This week, however, we did not manage it well. We approached Gambian women for this seat, followed up, and ran out of clock before we ran out of names. That is a failure of this production, and it is not a statement about the supply of Gambian women who are qualified to sit in this chair, because that supply is deep. And I could read you the names. We will book them, and you will see them on the show in future episodes. So this hour rests entirely with one guest, the male guest. And I have told my guest that about it already, that it is going to be he alone, and will not have a co-guest on the show. He will be sitting across me in that chair. So I'd like to bring my guest to the show. Welcome to the show, Mr. Jao.
Thank you for having me, Mr. King. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So, and for those of you who may not know much about our guest, he is currently the co founder and executive director of the Center for Research and Policy Development, and also an Afrobarometer national investigator for the Gambia. Sorry, I got to clear my throat this morning here. So, this is an amazing individual who is doing an amazing work in the Gambia and beyond Gambia, based on what he is doing with his team. Is an amazing work. So we like to again once more say welcome to the show, sir. We appreciate your presence. We know Saturdays usually are days that after professionals work throughout the week, they take Saturdays off and Sundays to be with family or have leisure time, and we appreciate you sacrificing your Saturday for this hour for us.
I mean, is this part of the work? I mean, it's Saturday, Sunday. Whenever we're needed, we're always happy to be there to share the little we know with the listeners, with the viewers. It's part of the work. It's the way we build Africa, so we have to do it the way.
Thank you. Thank you. And also for you, the audience, the second hour is supposed to be another Gambian, but the second hour is not live. It is going to be pre-recorded. I early on had a conversation with Mr. Marty Jabute. He is the guest for the second hour. Because of family commitment, he couldn't make it to be live, but you will still listen to an amazing conversation he had with us. So back to the show. Mr. Jao, in November 2014, rather, agents of the National Intelligence Agency of the Gambia arrested a young lecturer on the Bracama campus of the University of the Gambia. What he had done was a survey. He was working on a poll about good governance and corruption. And under former President Yahya Jammeh, asking Gambians what they thought of their government was not a research matter. It was an offense, the government says. He was held, released, and rearrested, charged, and finally acquitted. When the state appealed, he left the country. Today, the same man runs the national survey. Sat Madi Jao is the co-founder, like I mentioned, and he is the one we're going to be talking this morning with. Sorry. And to start with you, Mr. Jao, let's start in 2014. You were removed from the university campus for conducting a survey. Take my audience back into that room. What did they actually accuse you of doing?
Thank you, Mr. King. Well, of course, 2014 was a very interesting year, and I think going back to it basically was very simple. We were living in a dictatorship, and so dictatorship doesn't look at anything else. They were just interested in, are you mentioning the name of Yahya Jammeh? Under what context you mentioning the name of Yahya Jammeh? So in 2014, we were doing this study. It's survey with Gallup poll, basically. So I was the local contact for my team from Ghana and Nigeria. Um, so what happened basically was, one of the question was basically asking, do you approve or disapprove the way Jammeh was running the country? And I think it's very normal in terms of all the surveys that are looking for opinion and all of that. And so that was the question that got us into trouble. And at that time, I was very young. I was, like you say, I was very young, and so was interested in understanding what people were saying and all of those things. So I was very interested in that. But the state for them, I mean, we mentioned President Jammeh's name, and then you were asking people about that. That was a crime, and so they picked me from right at the university. I mean, it was not like come meet us there, come do that. They drove their vehicle right into the university campus. They picked me there while other students were. I was supposed to have class that morning, and so they picked me in front of the students and other colleagues, and then drove me to Banjul. And well, of course, the rest is history, they say. I mean, but a good one now.
So you left for Dakar when the state appealed, and I am someone who has left a country before, but for the audience who have no experience, what this means and what this looks like, talk to us about it. What does it take for a person to decide to leave their own country?
But actually, for me, I belong to this group of young Gambians called the Young Italians. So we have our motto called Basa Before Babylon. We are those that are to stay back. I mean, no matter what the situation is, we have to stay back and try to see how best we can push. Even the last community in our community in our country. So for me, I never had the intention of leaving. So I did my bachelor's here. I even started doing my master's. I even right now I'm doing my PhD here
Mm,
in Gambia. But that was a period where I had to be pushed out.
mm,
And so luckily for me, sometimes in our own context, we say when God wants to work in a good way,
mm,
you have to go through some challenges. So I was
mm,
in mile two.
mm,
The very Madi Jabate that you're going to interview, I mean, he's been the one that raised us in the activism space and all of those things.
mm,
He was the very one that recommended me for a Norwegian scholarship. So while I
mm,
was going to court with the government from December to April,
mm,
I had that. I had the scholarship. It was not guaranteed, but
mm,
the very day, I think a week before I got acquitted and discharged,
mm,
with no case to answer. I got a response from the Norwegian that I got the scholarship. So between me and the scholarship was just the acquittal and discharge. And so when
mm,
that happened, so I was able to get my documents, get everything. So I even traveled to South Africa for an African Youth Panel conversation. So while I was there, that's when I got informed that the state was going to appeal the case.
mm,
And so I came back. But going to Dakar, I had to apply for my visa, left my passport, everything, and came back home.
mm,
And then at that point, the issue started coming, and I went to my lawyers, and they advised that usually this is a tactic of the dictator. If they lose a case, they come after you.
mm,
And so I had to find my way out. And this is the part. So when you're finding your way out within this context,
mm,
Gambia and Senegal, just this day we are trying to create unnecessary distraction. But we have very porous borders, so you don't use
mm.
the official borders. We can use any unofficial border. So I
Right.
went all the way within the center, in the middle of the country, and then use one of those borders just to get off in the country, and there visit some family, and then later went to Dakar, spent
Mm,
1 month in Dakar, and then waited for my Norwegian visa, and then I went left for Norway to study.
mm. Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that piece with us. 10 years later after that incident, you are the Afrobarometer National Investigator for the Gambia. You do the same work with a bigger sample and an official mandate. Does that feel like vindication for you, or does it feel like something more fragile than that?
But I think it's both a vindication and a lesson learned.
Mm,
A lesson learned in the sense that while I was in prison, while I was in Mile Two, I mean, I noticed that what I was doing was right. Because even the people that I was there with, they had my story because the radio was talking about my case. I mean, they did not see me as criminal, so they saw what I was doing as very important for the society, asking questions and all of those things. And so it was then and then I said, well, if I had an opportunity, I would want to continue to do that because that was also the mission.
mm,
So I'm vindicated, of course, in the fact that today Jammeh is not here, but
mm,
the idea that we wanted to be able to engage with our people, to ask them questions, so that they will be freely able to respond, and so that
mm,
we'll be able to measure that to help inform policymakers to make the right decisions. For me today, I think people, and of course, I have to thank Gambians because I was not the one. It was Gambians that stood for me. And if you can see when you're doing your research, you could see hashtag free said Matijao and all of those issues. And so today, that's why today when I do this work, I mean, they already understand what I do. They see it that way, and it becomes a clear message that what we are doing is important and the people appreciate it, and we need to continue. But of course, today we're in a democratic society, a
mm,
society that we brought into existence because of our work. And
mm,
so, one way to sustain that is to ensure that we continue to engage the people, continue to act. But good thing now, the government
mm,
doesn't arrest you. What they do
mm.
is they release a press statement and say we disagree, and so we can debate that out. So, usually now that's what the situation is. But it also shows you how far this country has gone and
Yeah.
the kind of democratic process that we're establishing. I go on TV, criticize government, come back home. Unlike before, I was just asking and about to ask a question, and I
Mhm.
got arrested before even I was able to ask that question.
Right, right. And I know you highlighted briefly here that the current administration does not arrest the people, they release press statement. But Mr. Jao, I'm wondering though, could what happened to you in 2014 happen to any researcher in the Gambia today? And think about this deeply, Mr. Jao here. Think about it carefully, honestly, and thoughtfully. Is it possible for it to be repeated to anyone else?
I mean, if the current context that we are in, even if it happens, even
Mm,
where it happens, the society will resist. And there
mm,
was a case, the current Minister of Information, here's my lecturer, Dr. Ismail Assise. I mean, before he joined government, then he was just a lecturer. He was arrested. And so we
mm,
were prepared we spent the night at the police station. And for me, the message was what happened to me in 2014 will never happen to any other Gambian, especially
mm,
academics, because academic freedom should be part and parcel of the foundation of what we're supposed to do, especially in a country that is struggling, country that wants to grow, that wants to develop. So we cannot be here, even where it happens. We'll find means to resist that. So we
mm.
cannot say it will not happen,
Okay.
but the society sometimes what you do is well, be prepared that in case
Mm,
it happen, what
mm,
are you willing and what are you ready to do? So right now we have the courts. We've been going to the courts to fight. We've been doing quite a lot, and so those are things that I think this dispensation, not as in government, but when I talk about this dispensation, I'm talking about the democratic struggle that Gambians fought for and brought about. And
mm.
so it is Gambians' resilience, it is Gambians' understanding. And these are things that we see every day on our data and all of those different issues. So these are things that we're very confident that it will be there. Yeah.
Okay. So and again, so let us even look at what Gambians told you. In your April and May 2024 round, 77% said the country is going in the wrong direction. In 2018, that figure was 29%. In 6 years,
Mhm.
it has gone from 3 in 10 to nearly 8 in 10. What
Yes.
happened in those 6 years?
Well, a lot. One is euphoria. Euphoria. Well, I don't know whether it's right to say euphoria gone wrong or what. I mean, unsustained or manageable expectation. I mean, I think the 2018 period was a period of honeymoon.
Mm,
It was a period of honeymoon. People were free. It was still part of that whole process.
mm,
In 2016 or 15 thereabout, during the election at that time, I wrote an article. I said, and my argument was basically that what a new government can really do for Gambians
mm,
is to be able to bring democratic change, not
mm,
to address the socio-economic needs of the country. Because at that time, if you really realistically look at the situation on the ground,
mm,
I mean, Jammeh was the economy,
mm,
basically. So it will take time for all of those things to be said. And people now, they're
mm,
not looking at democratic and all of those different rights. Now it's about the daily, what they call it, the daily bread
mm.
is the question. The issue of
Right.
cost of living, how hard things are, and all of those issues. So these are issues that add up to people being frustrated about the direction of the country, and some other issues in terms of leadership, in terms of the issues around corruption, where people perceive that corruption is also on the increase, and if you can see the trajectory, and that's why we really love the Afrobarometer data, because it has
Mm,
been accompanying us from 2018 to now. So you can see social, the evolution of
mm,
the Gambian society from 2018 to now. But I think now the biggest problem, and I always argue that, I mean, an empty barrel cannot stand. Democracy with empty stomach is not
mm,
democracy. So democracy must be backed by people well fed, having enough food to eat, and then they can do the necessary discussion. But people that are hungry, they cannot do those kind of
mm.
engagements.
Yeah, we and the audience, please, thank you. Let us know where you're joining us from. You're listening to the Africa Desk Live. We will raise, Mr. Jao. There are some comments coming in already. We'll be raising or sharing those comments with you, and then maybe hear your thoughts on those. Again, if you're just joining us anywhere on the planet or anywhere in Africa, please let us know. This is the Africa Desk. It is a platform for you, the African citizen. It's not for governments. It's not for politicians. It's not for foreign interests. We do not invite political candidates on this show. If we do, we have to balance it. For instance, if we bring in a candidate, say, from the Republican Party, it's just an example. I know we do not have a Republican Party in some of the African countries, but if we do have a Republican candidate, we have to bring a Democratic candidate. So we have to balance the field. We do not do that here. It is for the African citizen, the people who the media, general media, foreign media usually do not get to. This is the platform for them. And we are not against or in favor of any local, national, or international government. This is the platform only for the African citizen. So, Mr. Gerald, you mentioned something about corruption. I'm going to go back to those numbers later, but I seem to be seeing a thread here around Africa. With my conversation with Marty, he mentioned corruption when I was discussing South Africa last week. The professor from Johannesburg mentioned corruption. When we're discussing Sierra Leone, there was corruption. We're discussing Liberia, corruption, and Kenya and Senegal. There is a theme here that is permeating around Africa. If we're talking about African unity, we are talking about Africans in the diaspora wanting to come back to their African countries to help to contribute. We're talking about young girls, young boys sitting down in Banjul or in the villages in the Gambia who are thinking and having hope about their countries. How can they have hope when corruption is really destroying the fabric of every society in Africa?
I mean, there's a state level corruption, societal corruption, but for me the reality is why corruption is thriving here is because I wouldn't want to say that African societies are corrupt, but
Mm,
it seems like we have accepted or normalized corruption to a large extent. That even if you're working and you're not corrupt, you become the enemy of everybody else. So the foundation of the African has been the issues around integrity and all of those things, and we tend to forget those issues. And sometimes we just look at it government, but it is across it permeates across society at the lowest level. You find corruption at all that level. I mean, so
How do we get rid of that? How can we get rid of corruption? Is it something
I
that
mean
is possible to get rid of?
for me is corruption is a symptom. Is a symptom of an institutional or society where they're losing their integrity and all of that.
Mm,
The issue is, how do we restore integrity? How do we go back to do, because integrity is easier. Corruption, you talk about corruption is like you're firefighting something, but why not build integrity from children upwards, and to
mm,
say what belongs to you, what doesn't belong to you doesn't belong to you. You start from there. You build it, you raise those issues. So for me, the focus should be even not on corruption, but how do we promote integrity across everything that we do. In that way, instead of just corruption, which at some point doesn't mean anything anymore, because it's across. So we bring the positive, more optimistic, and build society based on integrity. For me, I think it is more abstract, but it is easier than firefighting the other way.
mm. Yeah. So back to those numbers that you mentioned with the Gambian government here. I'm wondering though, you know, i- i- how much of that 77% is a disappointment with the current President Barrow specifically, and how much is it a disappointment with the idea that a transition would change anything at all?
Well, I think the in 2016, when the change was happening, people were saying, I mean, Jammeh must go. So for us, our slogan, one of our friends, I mean, the slogan was Jammeh must go. I
Mm,
mean, people did not really care what's to come, what was happening, what's going to happen. But for me, I mean, I was very careful in that. That's why I told you I wrote about something as early as that, to
mhm,
say that the situation within our country now is just the starting point is to bring that democratic setup. But I've read documents in Gambia where people, even independence, people were questioning when will independence end, because the way we do this campaign, these slogans, this kind of freedom, that freedom will bring about, everything else. Then people soon become realize that it's not the case,
mm,
and so that's where we are. And the fact that we have not been focusing on the economic aspect, building it up more extensively. They're trying to do one or two things, but youth unemployment, cost of living, those are the realities that is also affecting. And most of this frustration is about that. And if you go back to the same data and then you ask them if elections were to be held tomorrow, who are you likely to go vote for? In
mm,
2024, I think most of them said President Barrow. So sometimes
mm,
also the issue of these issues are not well connected to
mm,
the broader issues. Sometimes I wonder. You said that the country is not going in the right direction, economy bad, everything bad, and then who are you going to vote for? President Barrow. Why? Perhaps they see him as somebody that is very peaceful, that is doing that, something that has totally different from their own personal need. So
mm.
sometimes these are the realities that also speaks to the reasons behind this data.
Thank you. And for my audience out there, please, 77%, please hold that number. Have that number in mind as we discuss during this hour, because everything else we are going to be discussing with Mr. Jaro here in this hour sits underneath that number. And the first place it shows up is in a document that the Gambia has now failed twice to write. And so, my question to you, Mr. Jaro, following up on that comment, is the Gambia goes to the polls this December, still governed by the 1997 Constitution written under former President Yahya Jammeh. The 2020 draft died in the National Assembly. The 2024 bill was rejected at second reading last July. Your own numbers say 71% of Gambians want a new constitution, and 67% want the 2020 the 2020 draft brought back. How does a document rather that popular keep dying as a constitution you have that was being used under the the past administration? It is the same document you're going to be using. It's popularly dying.
Yeah, I mean the political disagreements and political elites disagreeing on one foundation that they all agree on. All of them, they want a new constitution. Generally, everybody accepts that the fact that the country needs a new constitution, and all of those issues. I mean, that's a given. I've been part of this process. The 2020, I was at the National Assembly trying to lobby all of them to see reason. Because if we're talking about transition, and sometimes some of this frustration also is the political, and these are the missing links that are happening within our political transition, which also frustrates the people. So on two occasions, it ended up becoming a ping pong game between the political parties in parliament. You want this, we don't want this. You want that, we don't want that. And unfortunately for me, there is no reason why political parties should not have sat around the constitution, whatever the draft was, whatever the discussion was, since the most important point is they all wanted constitution. But now the nitty gritty, or the main point of contention
Mhm,
is issues around what they disagree on. And
mhm,
like for instance, the issue of, before in 2020, it was the issue of retroactivity, whether President Barrow should go for the President Barrow's term should start in 2017, or it should continue, while President Barrow said you cannot make constitution with retroactivity, so that cannot happen. So between that ping pong, the constitution ended up being rejected instead of
mhm,
sitting around to discuss those issues. And the second one is the process that was used by the Ministry of Justice was faulted, because it was people felt it was not consultative, like that was done in 2018, 2019 process. And so the second one did not get as much support compared to the first one, because of what they think government did not do right, even though government was saying, but we've been having consultation. We didn't do anything different from the meetings that you had with chambers and others. Those were the minutes that we took to amend this constitutional process. But it ended up being rejected. So now the conversation is, people wanted, political parties wanted. Um, uh, we are there.
mhm,
We cannot find ways to move ahead. And the
mhm,
question of President Barrow's retroactivity, now we still have the 1997 Constitution, which
mhm.
has no term limit. So if he wants, he can continue to go for 1 billion years, as Jammeh wanted to do, as long as he can win elections.
Hmm. Wow, that is interesting to hear. In 2020, you wrote publicly that the MPs who shut down the draft were motivated by a desire to let President Barrow stay in the office. That is a claim about motive, though, not about procedure. And it is a serious one. 6 years on, do you still stand behind it? And what is your evidence?
Well, of course, it's the same. I mean, it's the same group of people, because, for me, when I write, when I engage, these are people that I engage with. I did not just wait for the constitution to fail to write.
Mhm,
And I think when I wrote that article, both sides were not happy, or some were complaining. At the end of the day, they felt like it was a very balanced piece, in fact, because for me, I'm not interested in what side they are. I'm interested in what are the facts, what I've experienced, and based on that. So from 2020, definitely it was President Barrow's people, and that time it was just about very few small group of people, because the constitution threshold is about 75%. And
mhm,
so if you don't get that 75% votes, I mean, then you lose it. But of course, it's not only President Barrow. Then you have the APRC candidates, parliamentarians, because Jammeh, when he left, he lost total control of the parliament, but his party still was in existence, so they have 5 seats. So for
mhm,
them, the 1997 constitution is still their constitution, is still their document, and they don't want it changed. And even, in fact, the second voting, the same group of people also rejected that. So there's a whole group that are still adamant that the 1997 constitution also should stay.
mhm,
But for me, the point that I made was, politics was used to reject a constitution that was meant for the public. And so it was done, and that's why I was talking about the arguments that they were making, retroactivity. And Madi even made a comment that said that MP should not touch the constitution. And some of these people end up taking that as a slogan to say, "Oh, Madi said we should not touch it, so we should reject it." So they use certain things that were coming from the public and to use that as excuses. And for me, I tell them in their faces. I met with them before the votes were met. I met both this minority and the majority, and I was trying to bring them together, but unfortunately, it did not work. So I had to write. And for me, that is the responsibility I have taken in terms of my advocacy, in terms of my social justice. I just don't come and write and make, but these are things based on my engagement, based on my reflection with them. And whenever they read it, they say that, I mean, I told them, I told you so.
Mm. And you also co-authored the dispatch showing that Gambians backed the draft gender quota for the National Assembly. The draft died, and the quota died with it. What did Gambia lose there? In practical terms, in the chamber that is still overwhelmingly dominated by male politicians.
Well, 5 out of 58.
Mm,
So you have 5 women out of 58. So what that provision was trying to do basically was to address that imbalance.
mm,
And I mean, of course, if you look at our surveys, mostly people will say we vote for women candidate and all of that issues. It's not about the people, but how do you present women candidates? How are they backed? How are they supported at the political party level? In most cases, that's where we have the barriers and also the financial and other means. And so that provision, basically, as part of the reform agenda, was to also expand the house, but also to ensure that we increase the number of women that are represented at the chamber. And
mm,
so far, across all our representative bodies, we have like I think in the local councils, we have about 12 women across the country out of
mm,
120 wards.
mm,
And so you have all of those five in parliament. And so what we lost is the inclusivity aspect that our reform should have focused on. Still, women are struggling. I mean, these are affirmative actions that has to be taken in line to adjust. But of course, for me personally, I always argue with with our women here. I said you have to fight it as well. It's not just that you just sit there and say, "Oh, we need affirmative action." Sometimes you have to fight it. Fight it within the party. It doesn't matter whether men or women. For me, it doesn't. As long as it's about the nation, you want to serve the nation, get in there, fight it out. And but
mm,
of course, there are what socially also financial families. Those are seen as also problem for women. But I think for me, if political parties take it up seriously and then make it a policy decision within political parties, because we have seen cases where political parties present candidates and they
mm,
get elected. And
mm,
so for me, you see, these are still all the missing gaps that we have with our reform. So we have our democracy, but we don't have our change yet.
mm. Name for me, Mr. Jao here, the Gambian women, and let my audience hear them here, whose absence from that particular chamber the country actually feels for right now. Like those women, if they were in the chamber, maybe the country would have been better. Maybe they would have had an impact in the chamber because, like in Rwanda, you have the chamber that has many women represented there. If you were, I'm asking you now, not if even if you can name those for us that you think, oh, this woman would make an impact, this person. The country is losing because of the absence of these women. Who would those women be?
I mean, there are many. I wouldn't want to name any person, but there
Mm,
are in this country.
mm,
I engage with a lot of women politicians. I train a lot of. For me, I'm into the capacity building training, so I
mm,
met with them. A lot
mm,
of them all the time. Some of them contest, some of them will lose, some of them are still there. So what I do is just to keep encouraging them. And I think we always have an example in terms of what the mayor of Banjul is the first female elected mayor, and she won on second term. This is not her first term. She will contest with everything that they say about our politics, the insults and everything. She fought her way out, and she's also supporting to build the capacities of other women. So I sometimes participate in her engagement, and what
mm,
I always tell them is like they have to fight it out. It's not about the men this. Sometimes it's like you have to be there and then to show them that you also belong. Because the issues around democracy is about that. You know, people don't give it to you in silver platter, but there are so many women, especially young women today, with highly educated, with a lot of experience, highly exposed, trained around the legal, whatever you mention, you'll find them in this country at the highest level as well. And so socially sometimes there's a lot of social stigma around that when it comes to those issues. But for me, those are like for us, even the ones that we are engaged. People say so many things, but I mean, we believe in what we do. We don't really care. This others as noise. Just believe in it and then go for it. And I keep telling them all the time that yes, we can do affirmative action and all of that, but sometimes you have to, hold the bull by the horn.
Mm. Okay, and thank you. If you are just joining us from anywhere around the world, please drop the location in the comment section for us, and please ask your questions to Mr. Zhao. He is here to answer those questions before we let him go. And to my audience again, I'm looking at you and I'm telling you this. This is for you. Twice written, twice buried. The Constitution. Now, my guest has spent his career producing evidence about his own government, and I want to turn that around on him for a few minutes here. Bear with me, audience, because the position he occupies is not, relatively speaking, not a neutral one, and he knows it. Mr. Zhao, let me put that, let me put the government case to you right now, because, somebody should. You are a man, the previous state prosecutor. You run an organization that is funded from outside the country. You publish numbers that are consistently bad for the administration. And you appear on programs like this one to explain those numbers, which we appreciate. A supporter of the president would say that you are not a researcher, you are an actor in the Gambian politics with a spreadsheet, widely open. What is your answer?
Well, it's not only the supporters of the president, is everybody, anybody that is not happy with our figures, they always accuse me of belonging somewhere. And it's we're used to that, and we're used to that. And for me, the thing is, I am not here to please anyone. And I keep telling that. I mentioned it one time when politicians were going after us. We're not doing this work to satisfy politicians. We will not do that. I mean, they have their duty to do politics. Let them do politics and get the mandates of the people. Us also, we have the duty to ask people what they want and present it before the people. So everybody must play their role. And so for us, that's our role. Whether we get the money, yes, we are a civil society organization, we get funded. But the way we also operate is that we try to be as independent as possible. You don't give us money and you dictate us. It doesn't come wherever you're coming from. Because we are interested, we have a history where we're coming from and a history that we want to protect, but also we have a future that we want to build for not for us but for our children. You're talking about what you're doing basically is you're bringing the continent together, and so we have that agenda that we want to. So we're not going to be interested in whoever is happy or not happy. We're not here to please anyone. We're here to do our work, and as long as it's scientific, as long as it's going to be independent, and it is about the interest of the country, we'll continue to do that. We just have the numbers, talk to the people, and present it. We're not saying we are doing anything. We talk to the people. If you don't believe that we're talking to the people, go and talk to the people and see what the people will tell you. So for us, is as simple as that. It's nothing else. And if you come out with the data, you don't like it, yes, it's your opinion. But it's not only government that comes after us. It's everybody that is not happy with our survey will come after you, the opposition. So for me now, I mean, at the end of the day, what I realize is that if somebody shout today and another shout tomorrow, it means that we are independent and we are doing the right thing. So let that be the way forward.
And I want to be very specific here, Mr. Jari here. Draw for me a line between publishing findings that are factual versus campaigning on that.
So for me, what I do is basically, I mean, we do not do research just for it to be for the academics, for all of those things. So we talk to people. So when we talk to people, they tell us their feelings, they tell us their ideas, they tell us all of those things, the list that they expect from us, and they keep telling us that you come here, you talk to us, and then we don't see you. So the least we can do is also to amplify that because it's their voice that we're collecting. So we are trying to amplify the voice of the citizens. So in that way, so it's a continuum of still the research, because when you do the campaign or the advocacy, what I call it, to share the information, you get feedback. Sometimes people will say, your numbers are even less, because it is also, they're finding it to reflect their own perspective or their own belief systems. I'll also take one example with the judiciary. So I told you it's not only government, even the judiciary. The other time we released a dispatch on access to justice, and they were not happy. They were not happy in the sense that they felt like we should have gone to ask them. We said, no, you don't understand our methodology. We're not asking, this is not about institutional assessment. We're not assessing institutions from an institutional perspective. We're assessing institutions or anything else from the people's perspective. And so when we share the people's perspective, this is how people see it. And perceptions can be right, can be wrong, but these are also some of the realities. So if they're wrong, your duty is to come and explain your processes and also to ensure that the services that you are delivering is accessible to the people. So sometimes what we keep telling them is like, we're just giving you feedback. But I think within this 6 years period, I mean, now people have, I mean, they cannot shake us because I mean, we are part of the democratic story, and so we are a voice within this whole conversation, and we are helping bring the evidence. Even politicians today, they will come out and then say, we disagree with your survey, but behind the scene, they will come and look for the numbers.
Hmm. There's a comment from a viewer in the audience there, but before I go to that comment, I'm going to tie that in with the question I want to ask you here, specifically on those numbers. Here is a harder version for me. If 77% of Gambians say the country is going the wrong direction, and the same country keeps returning to the same president, one of two things is not measuring up what we think it is measuring. Which one is it, Mr. Jao?
I mean, people are expressing themselves. They don't like the perhaps the way their situation, because sometimes we ask them about their economic situation. So the direction of the country for me is usually people interpret it mostly in terms of their economic, and that's what I was mentioning. And that's why
Mm,
when you go back and then ask them political question, I mean, people separate those things,
mm,
economy. And here sometimes people don't blame government for most of these issues. Some Gambians have this fatalistic mentality that it is God, your condition is God. I mean, this typical African mentality. And also, like some people believe that a leader that is there is put by God. So, I mean, voting for him, like you're doing God's work basically. So
mm.
there are people that have different belief systems. So they can come and complain about the economy, their brokenness, their poverty, and everything else, but they also have a very strong belief about, I mean, what kind of a leadership should be there, who should
Right.
be elected. So now for me, that's why one time, we presented these findings with all these negative figures and all of those things, and somebody
Mm.
asked me, what diplomat say, but why all these figures? Then election comes. I said, well, you see, like I said, it seems like these are not the things that determine our election. Our election is a totally different ballgame.
In line with that comment and the question that I asked you, a viewer here made a comment, but I want to ask you, it's a substance thing here about dictatorship. The viewer says dictatorship thrives when the very society gives it credence. In any society, the leadership reflects the people. Is that true for the Gambia?
I think it was Alex de Tocqueville that said people get the government they deserve. I mean, I think, of course, is very reflective of the Gambian situation. Jammeh came to power when he was what, 29 years old.
Mm,
Yeah, sometimes some people say even Jammeh was a victim of Gambia, not like the other way. Like, just to say what the comment, how I agree with the comment. So 29-year-old. The
mm,
only different thing he had was the gun, and everybody started praise singing him. He was the
mm,
best. He's this,
mm,
and the same people were the ones that were praise singing the former president that was here for like 30 years
mm.
plus. So it is the people in
Yeah,
most cases.
yeah.
So
So then,
even
broadly speaking, because we're talking about corruption here, and it seemed to be permeating every African community, should we then say corruption on the continent of Africa is going to be reflective of the people in each of the African countries?
that's why I was talking about integrity. Are we losing our integrity as a continent?
Hmm.
That's the question. I
Hmm.
mean, when we look at our generation, for instance, and then we compare our parents' generation and the parents, and like
Hmm.
we know where we're
Right.
coming from.
Right.
It doesn't matter whether it's Gambia anywhere.
Yeah.
Like just look at their lives, the way that they were living their lives in terms of their integrity and comportment and all of that, and compare it with our generation and everything else.
mm,
We are more focused on the materialistic world. They
mm,
were more interested in building communities, building societies, being together
mm.
in most instances. But for us, it's mostly who gets what, who drives the latest, who drives that. And sometimes we want to compete among ourselves to show, because of course, now we come with this whole we went to school, we speak English, we do all of that. And but we always forget where we are coming from. And that is
Mm.
the most important element that we must always remember.
You're talking about integrity here. It's very key here. So then again, while corruption is rampant on the continent, is it then the responsibility primarily on the families, on the parents, the mother and father, to teach those values into the young kids, especially this generation, or is it left with someone else?
Of course, it starts with everything starts with the family. You see, for me, I mean, these politicians they come keep killing us with all of these terminologies and all of that. And
Mm,
I think in Africa, what we are getting loose of is the family setup. You know, we're from the extent. I grew up in an extended family where all of us kids will grow up with our grandparents, our mothers and fathers will go and do hustle, and so we're raised within the extended family setup and all of those different elements. But of course, the society, the world is changing, and the way people earn living is also changing. Before you have farming, and now people are not doing much farming now. They're moving into services and all of that, and so people don't have time to raise their own kids as well. So
mm,
it's either the TV or everything else that raise the kids, and so we need to realize that that is the where the changes are happening also. Sometimes you can do everything that you want to do for the kid, and it doesn't work the way you want. So it's mostly the family, I will say, which where it must start, like to train the kids into integrity. And here in Gambia also, I mean, for me, what people talk about as sensitive issues, I'm a teacher, I teach.
mm,
Like this whole migration, my position is, I mean, yeah, because sometimes it's the parents that give kids their monies to go,
mm,
you know, and sometimes so it's like you are demanding a lot from your kid that you don't even know in terms of the pressure, in terms of how you want it. You say, look at your kids; they're making it in life. You are not doing anything. So how do you expect that person to survive? And that's
yeah.
why in our context now we have a lot of these kids, these young boys, and even now young girls. They're entering the boats and trying to find ways to go to Europe,
Mm,
because it's also what the changing dynamics within the family and the
yeah.
society, the social pressure. And these are I'm not saying it's the only thing, but I'm saying that it's the foundation
Mm,
for this kind of society that we
yeah.
invest in.
You have researched how Gambians actually perceived the African Union and the
Mhm.
Economic Community of West Africa, ECOWAS, its interventions, including the force that stayed. The region is celebrated for saving the Gambia transition. Your work suggests ordinary Gambians were more divided about that than the communiques admit. Is it siding with the people or is it siding with the occupying force? Which one, Mr. Jammeh?
Yes, yes. I mean, I think my uncle, the ECOWAS commissioner, disagree with that. I mean, I think
Mm,
one time he came here and he's the president of the ECOWAS commission. He was making a statement. He said that ECOWAS is with the people.
mm,
And so we take it that ECOWAS is with the people. But I think the report basically was to see people's perception about intervention as well.
mm,
And so it was an opportunity for us to understand whether Gambians understand their continental institution and sub-regional institution as well, but also to see, because still we have economic, in this democratic, where we've also seen where people are demanding based on Afrobarometer.
mm,
Many Gambians want economic to leave for the security of the country to be taken by the security institutions.
mm,
And so a lot of people then what they were saying is ECOWAS, AU, they did well at the beginning,
mm,
in terms of ensuring that the change that Gambians wanted, they helped to provide that. And so people welcome that. But the problem is overstaying.
mm,
We say, well, overstaying in power, overstaying in peacekeeping, and all of that. And at some point, we also had so many frictions, especially around the phony with the Casamas, with the economic, and a lot of those issues contributed to why people feel, well, you came here to do a job, and now that job is done. What are you still doing here? So,
mm,
but this is also showing increasingly how people are trusting their military, how they are trusting their security, even though they still want them to be better and to do certain things. Yeah.
Yeah, which brings us to justice, Mr. Jao here. And my audience, just so you know, and I want to be specific about which justice here because there are two kinds in the Gambia and they are not the same kind at all. Um, your access to justice work found, Mr. Jao, that 56% of Gambians say people are often or always treated unequally under the law. And 59% say officials who usually break the law go unpunished. Nearly half say judges decide on the influence of powerful people. What does a country do with a judiciary its own citizens describe that way, Mr. Jao?
Well, I mean, the judiciary, I mean, I told you this report, they were not happy. I mean, they released their whole statement with regards to it. But I mean, unfortunately, this is the reality. You see, and I will not blame them because
Mm,
also I'll blame the broader state. And at one point, I even wrote an article arguing that because there were bills, during the constitution, there were those reforms for the judiciary. So there was a bill that was also before to increase judicial remuneration and other packages as well, but was rejected also by Parliament. So you can see that the judiciary is also facing a lot of challenges, financial bottlenecks, and all of that. So to deliver justice on time and at the time that people need it is also very challenging at this year. And that's a reality that there's a lot of backlog of cases,
mm,
and there are a lot of land cases, for instance. So people get frustrated when sometimes these cases drag on for and on, because as a case drags on, it has an economic toll on the individual. The
yeah.
cost of transport, the cost of going to the cases, and sometimes some people will just get frustrated and
Mm,
stop it. And sometimes they also put certain expectation on the police, that they see the police as the judiciary, but the
mm,
police duty is to arrest and take you to the courts. And sometimes police will do all that process, go to the or 72 hours, because for us we insisted. Me, I was detained like 7 days.
mm,
I was detained like on 7 days beyond the 72 hours of the constitution. So
mm,
now many Gambians are very concerned about that 72 hours. So the
yeah.
police will try as much as possible to arraign you before court, or if they don't have, they release you and then look for something else. So even
Eh,
people that were detained for beyond 72 hours, they take the police to court, and they've won some. There are cases that they've won against the police and the government to be compensated. So you see that the democratic
yeah.
trajectory, people are
Yeah.
going to court, they are fighting their own cases. But of course, that's why when I said service delivery, the economic, the everyday things that people need, there are a lot of gaps
Yeah.
in that, where the government need to start focusing. And for me, just yesterday there was this tripartite conference with the judiciary, the parliament, and the executive, and I was invited. And I
Mm,
told them, like, you have to invest, we have to put money in governance. And putting money in governance is to ensure that these processes move. But they don't put money in governance, they can put money in politics and other things else. But in the governance, the functionary, the machinery that makes things work, they're not investing money in that. And that's why some of these things is where we are with the judiciary. But
mm,
likely, they've been ruling cases, though high level cases, where even just not long ago, the government lost the case. The president, particularly, he fired the auditor general, and the
mm,
Supreme Court ruled in favor of that person. That was so, and they're losing cases. And for
mm,
us, even we've been taking the National Assembly, we've been taking the IAC, we've been taking people, even government. The last time the budget, we took it to court.
mm,
So we're also strengthening the court with the cases that we take there, because
mm.
the court cannot bring case to themselves, so people have to engage them and interact with them.
Mr. Jao, we've got a few more questions here. I know it's and we'll be wrapping up quite soon here. But one finding actually stopped me, and I was thinking about it. When Gambians were asked, asked where they would take a legal problem if a Gambian citizen has a legal problem, where they would take it.
Mhm.
31% said they would take it to the police, and then
Yes,
20% said they would take it to the elders or the courts, and 2% said a lawyer. 2%. What
yes.
does that tell us about the former justice system that was ever built, who this justice system was built for? If the people can say only 2% would take it to the lawyers who are legally, and responsible for take on cases. What does that tell us?
Well, one people are telling you that the lawyers, the system is expensive.
Hmm.
We cannot afford it.
Hmm.
If they were able to afford it, I mean, they will because the elders is cheap, the police is free. I mean, all of those things, you just walk in, you do your complaint, you do your cases, and sometimes the police mediate and handle certain things within their own level. And
Hmm.
sometimes, within our society, there are people, elders that people can approach, and then they can solve problems. These are people within the society, and people understand those kind of channels. So they would prefer to go to those route, especially if it is not when it comes to criminal, that one is different. But for their own personal civil matters, there are those issues that they can go to. But the legal, the courts, and all of those things is expensive, and that's why
Hmm.
many governments in Africa are also looking at alternative mechanisms. And in Gambia, we have what we call the alternative dispute resolution
Hmm.
services, where people, if they don't want to go to court, they can go for mediation, they can go to settle their cases. But what we are trying to, and recently we work for them on a strategy plan, what we are trying to help them do is basically to make it more visible so that people can go there instead of going to the courts. People can go there as an alternative mechanism. If the courts are expensive, you can get a similar something that, because what they want is just justice. So where they can find the justice at a little or no cost, usually what they prefer. But of course, if you look at it in terms of cost, the educated people, richer, they tend to go to lawyers and all of those things. But the everyday people, they go to the police or the elder or the imam in their community. That's why the traditional leaders and imams are highly trusted in our society,
Okay.
and
There is a
religious
great
leaders.
deal. There's a great deal of institutional energy going into trying the crimes of the former president Jammeh, and a special prosecutor is now in post. Meanwhile, the ordinary Gambian with a land dispute or an unpaid wage still cannot get near a court. Are those two projects competing for the same scarce resource or what?
Well, in the broader context, yes, they might be competing, but one is specific
Mhm.
for transitional justice. And I think one of the things that we've been able to do and continue to do is to sequence our process and separate it. So there's this internationalized hybrid code that's been established, and also there's this local, depending on what cases can be handled at the local level. But I don't see these. I think they are complementary
Mm.
because the resources that have been used for the transitional justice and other prosecution and all of that stuff, eventually would be something that the court will eventually use, benefit from, and all of that. So there have been investment in renovating the certain judicial complexes and all of those issues. But I think the case around land, it's beyond the courts,
Mm.
and it takes sometimes 10 something so many years. But there are new mechanisms that have been brought in, like mediation and all of those things that are helping. But land alone is one major issue
Mm.
that is creating backlog within our court cases. Because
Yeah.
everywhere you go, you find land cases here and there, people buying land, selling it. The corruption that we are talking about, you see, it's not the government that is buying and selling land, it's individuals in society. And then they're creating all that mess, for people wanting to get their money. They're creating all that mess for the state institutions. So,
Right.
so I mean, so you see, this is the bottom up corruption going up into the
Mm.
state institution now and creating backlogs, and people not able to address that.
Yeah. I'm going to leave the tribunal itself to my second hour because Mr. Madi Joe Bartel of the Edward Francis Small Center is with us right after the break when we are done with Mr. Jao here. But December is 5 months out, and let me finish up where the country is heading rather than where it has been, Mr. Jao. The election runs under the 1997 Constitution with no term limit. Your data says only 29% believe the ruling party is committed to constitutional reform, and only 34% believe it of the main opposition. If neither side is trusted on the central question, What is the December election actually deciding?
Well, that's a very good question. I mean, and everybody is promising us a new constitution, in fact, but the people don't trust them.
Mm,
When it comes to that. But I think this December election is going to be really. We're looking forward to it. It has a lot to decide. 87% of Gambians telling us that they believe in term limits. It's an opportunity to see whether they can test it on the ground or not. Because term limit is not just about the constitution, but it's you understanding that you have the vote, that you can make the change that is necessary. But I also think December we're going to be seeing a lot of, the old guards versus the new guards. There are quite a lot of new political actors, players that are coming in. Already you're hearing these intergenerational issues that are
mm,
also coming up. So far, some of the issues that I'm hearing, I think the NPP has their agenda, and they're
mm,
talking about continuity. They want to continue the road constructions, they want to continue electricity expansion, the development work that they do. I see opposition, they're looking at the reforms that have not taken shape, like the
mm,
security sector reform, what they consider is not taking shape, the security sector reform, constitutional reform, and all of that, those issues. And so you also have group of opposition they're trying to discuss because, like I mentioned in the beginning, opposition unity, forming a coalition, is part of the discussion as well because our based on the 1997 constitution, as you rightly stated, is first past the post, is simple majority. And so simple majority, you go with the if the positions are divided, then it's like an easy sale for the president. But if
mm,
they come together, then
mm.
that will likely give him a big challenge because then it will aggregate their votes. So these are the conversations that are currently happening. Yeah. So people are looking forward to it, and we're looking forward to it.
Final wrapping two questions and briefly here you can spend brief time on each of them. If the current president had a chance to listen to you or watch you or his cabinet or any of his supporters were listening to you right now, what would be your message to the president?
Well, my message always, keep working for the country, being Democrat, as simple. I mean, just be the president for everybody, be the peace builder, the unifier. I mean, you're a politician, but still you're a president. So president has like two hats. So they have a
Mm,
political hat, but they also have the other hat.
mm,
So for me, when to know what hat to wear, where to wear it is also very important because at the end of the day, I mean, especially as we move towards election, it's not only for the president but for all the political leaders. That if you while you are looking for power, you divide your people. When you get that power to unite them, will become very difficult. So for me, I always say these things, and I always put it back there to remind them that this country is small. We're all family. It's 2.4 million people. I mean, most of the people in government, they are my uncles, they are my aunties, but I will wake up and take them to court. I mean, so for me, those are the things that we are building, and most of them they're the ones that train me. The
mm,
Madi that you are having trained me. Dr. Ismail Assise was my professor. Professor
mm.
Gomez, Minister of Higher Education. So it's a small community, and so
Yeah.
we all, so we have like multiple roles. We play multiple roles, and we overlap, and So sometimes it's how do we just realize that we're already family, but also you build your family home together. And I
Mm,
think for me, those are where the leadership comes in, and of course, politics is part of it. And I always tell them here, I make my money out of politicians based on the analysis and all of those things. So let them
mm,
continue doing politics, but them do politics that I will not be running away from, but one that I
mm,
can make my money and the society,
mm,
becomes better in that way. So for me, the message has always been simple. I want to retire in this country, and then I enjoy this beach in a peaceful Gambia forever.
mm. And finally, Mr. Jao, what is the single number in your data set that you wish every Gambian voter had in front of them before they voted?
One single number.
Yes.
Yeah, the 87% that says that they believe in term limits.
And why that number?
Oh, yes, I mean, like now you don't have the law. Is this? Are you going to say, okay, President Barrow? I mean, you continue or not? I mean, for me, that's one joke that I always put there. But it's also the choice of the people to pick whoever they want. I mean, it
Mm,
doesn't matter. It's as long as it is a democratic process. But at least sometimes I like to see the numbers that people say
mm,
being tested on the ground. When we ask them whether they voted in previous elections, like we had about 80, which also reflects on the voter tally, which I always want to see, and to
mm.
compare my numbers with the realities on the ground as well. So those are
Yeah,
things that I just, yeah, just on a
absolutely.
lighter side. Yeah.
Absolutely. And finally, before I let you go, is there anything you want the African audience to know that perhaps I didn't ask you about, but you think it's something you have in mind? You really wanted to go across Africa, particularly, but more so to the Gambian citizen? Please go ahead. The forum, I mean, the platform is yours. Just go ahead and tell us what is it.
No, I would just want to say thank you. You're doing an amazing work. I mean, I've like 54 conversations from 54 countries.
Yes.
That's amazing, and I think for me that's the agenda
Mm,
to showcase the continent, but also
mm,
to bring people together. The social culture. Let's not forget about that. Africa is social,
mhm,
and that social element is us. It's what unites us,
mhm,
and it's the people to people. Before the state, before all of these things, we get to know each other, and so we need to continue to do those kind of stuff, to learn about our countries, to travel more,
mhm,
to be inspired to travel more within the continent, and
mhm,
to learn from each other, to ignore all of these things that we've been brainwashed about ourselves, our people, our history, and to love ourselves, because it starts from there. To love yourself. If you don't love yourself, nobody will love you. You think these other people will come here because of anything else? They're interested in our resources, but also to be truthful to what we believe in, to be just, to be able to do all those kind of stuff. For me, I think these are the things that is not foreign to us. These are things that belong to us,
mhm.
and so we need to live the life that our ancestors left. Of course, the modernity is us. The internet is us. Is our generational issue, but you can learn a lot from it. You connect and do all those things that we are supposed to do. So my message is, let's remember the messages from Kuroma, the great leaders of Africa, and unite,
Mm,
because that's the only thing that is real.
mm.
Yeah, unity.
Thank you. Said Marijao, Executive Director of the Center for Research and Policy Development in Banjul, and the man who runs the survey. He was once arrested for running. Thank you for an hour of your Saturday and for carrying it alone. We appreciate you. The numbers you have just heard, the Gambia's, that those are the numbers what Gambians say. But before I continue my commentary there, thank you so much, Mr. Jao. It was a pleasure having you, and please have a good rest of your weekend.
Thank you, and please come and join me for Banku lunch. Today I'm eating Ghanaian lunch in
Oh,
Banjul here, so it's
thank
Banku.
you. Thank you. I appreciate the welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Good. The numbers you have just heard are what Gambians say when somebody asks them properly. In the next hour, we ask what anybody at all is supposed to do about it. Mr. Madi Jabarte of the Edward Francis Small Center for Rights and Justice will be joining us shortly. Again, just a reminder that the conversation that I had with Mr. Jabarte was pre-recorded. He couldn't be live like Mr. Jao did a few minutes ago, and we will be bringing that conversation shortly. But the conversation we had with him was around the citizens and about the diaspora. Because 10 years ago, the Gambian diaspora was not watching the story. It was actually making the story. So please stay with us. Again, if this is your first time joining the Africa Desk, this platform was built for you, the African citizen. It was not built for politicians. It was not built for foreign interest. We are not supported or funded by any foreign interest, by any political candidate, by any government, local, national, international. We are an independent media institution. We present the African citizen to you who tells you the things happening in his or her own country. Last week, we were in South Africa. The week before that, we were in Sierra Leone. Today, we are in the Gambia. And coming up Saturday, we will be hearing more details about the next country. But if this is your first time watching us, here are a few things we want you to do for us. Tell someone about the show, okay? Share the show with them or subscribe. We are on X, which is formerly Twitter. We are also on YouTube and we are on Facebook. We do not hold loyalty to any government, to anybody. We are independent. We bring the citizen to tell the African citizens what is happening on the ground in their countries. So if that is something you are interested in and you are living in any of the African countries, local and international, please reach out to us. You know, our contact, you can see that on the screen. You can send us WhatsApp message and say, hey, Semantics, I watched Mr. Jau on Saturday and it was an interesting conversation. I would love to come to the show. I have something off my chest. I have something I want to share with Africa. I have something that I really want to discuss. Please come. We will, set you across the table and we can discuss Africa, and particularly the events in your own country. Like I mentioned to you, the second hour now, we're going to turn over to Mr. Madi Jarbate. Again, this conversation was pre-recorded. It's not live. So when you want to give your comments in the session, in the comment section, we can discuss those later. But it is going to be a pre-recorded conversation. Just listen in here to what Mr. Jarbate has to say. And then at the end, if we have time, we could have a few maybe discussion. We could take some questions from the audience as well. Okay. So now let's go to that and let's see how this works. In 2016 and 2017, the Gambia did something the rest of the continent watched with disbelief. A small country removed a man who had ruled it for 22 years. And it did it at the ballot box. 10 years on, the cameras have gone, the anniversaries have been marked, and the harder work has begun. And that is the work that does not make the news. Constitutions that are not written, laws that pass are not implemented. A tribunal built for a defendant who is not in the country. My guest today at this hour has spent those years refusing to let any of that go quietly. Madi Jobate is one of the most persistent civic voices in the Gambia. He is the executive director of the Edward Francis Small Center for Rights and Justice in the Gambia. He has been called the most loved and the most hated activist in his own country, sometimes in the same week. And he has paid for the work with arrest, surveillance, and harassment. He describes himself and this in his own words as the Gambian development worker and a human rights defender with close to 30 years of experience. 30 years covers the whole of former President Yahya Jammeh's period, the transition that ended it, and everything that has and has not happened since. The center he now leads is itself new, a human rights organization created to carry a name out of the independence struggle into an argument that is very much still ongoing. Madi Jarbate, welcome to the Africa Desk Live.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Thank you. You opened this year with a public letter to President Barrow, and the argument in it stayed with me. You wrote that the infrastructure and institutions are inputs and outputs, and not indicators of success by themselves. 10 years after the transition, where is that gap widest between what has been built in the Gambia and what Gambians actually are experiencing right now?
Thank you. Yes, I wrote that letter, hoping the president would read it and reflect. So it's with him. I've not got a response actually, even an acknowledgement. But 10 years today, I think what we are experiencing is, in my view, no different from the past. Not just under Jammeh, but since independence. That is, yes, we are seeing the creation of institutions, the creation of laws, the building, construction of roads, of public infrastructure. Uh, but then these are laws and institutions and infrastructure are meant to impact on the lives of citizens, to create opportunity, to take them out of poverty and deprivation, to give them hope, to give them protection, and so on. So that 10 years today, since Barrow came to power, um, um, Gambian people continue to be confronted by high levels of poverty and deprivation, poor and expensive social services, which are also largely inadequate, not available everywhere, um, in a way that at the same time, uh, taxes continue to increase, loans and grants continue to increase, so that the indebtedness of the country has increased. But as I said, these have not translated into high human development, social and economic development, and many indicators are here that can show that. But at the same time, as well, to just highlight the paradox, is how corruption has increased, in the government, abuse of office, disregard of the rule of law, and various malpractices, including how public officials, are, whether they are pampered, or, with all sorts of incentives, whether it's vehicles or, salaries, allowances, so that at the end of the day, what one sees is that the state seems to benefit people who work in the state more than the ordinary citizens, even though it is involved in so many infrastructure and service delivery for citizens. So this is the paradox I observe in the Gambia, and so that if you ask me, for me, it is the same trend that we faced during Jammeh and well before, since independence, uh, lawlessness. Because at the end of the day, for me, it translates into that lawlessness. Because if you fail to perform your duties, if you fail to adhere to the law, if you fail to protect human rights, but you violate rights, you violate the law, break the law as public officials, and then there are no consequences, for me, that's an incidence of lawlessness. And that is what we have been confronted with, these past 10 years. But as I said, this goes way beyond since independence.
Wow, that is interesting to know. So, government officials, violate the law, violate the constitution, and they get away with impunity.
Yeah, just I'm not sure it's up to a month. The Supreme Court made a ruling that the president and the Gambia Police Force, the way they removed the Auditor General was unconstitutional. So sometime in September 2025, the president removed the Auditor General, who challenged his removal in the Supreme Court, and the court ruled that that action was unconstitutional because the police were deployed into the offices of the Auditor General to physically evict him out of his office. Now, before that, there was a case of the governor of Central Bank that was also removed unceremoniously, not according to the law. Before that, 6 years, 7 years ago, the president removed a National Assembly member on the basis that he nominated that National Assembly member, but who also challenged her removal. And the Supreme Court ruled that her removal was unconstitutional. And the president who did that continues to be the president. He has faced no consequence whatsoever. The police who removed the Auditor General last year from his office faced no consequence whatsoever. And this is just a few of the many instances, that matters have gone to court, and the court ruled that the state acted unlawfully. Not to mention, many other cases that did not go to court, whether denying people to protest, arbitrarily arresting people, but also, plundering public resources, which have been exposed in the Auditor General's reports, National Assembly reports have indicated that various commissions of inquiry established by the president himself have exposed massive corruption, mismanagement of public resources. Yet nobody, is held to account for those things. There's only one instance we know of a public official, a permanent secretary in the Ministry of Fisheries, who was, tried for corruption. Again, because the report, an investigative journalist exposed this corruption, and he was sentenced to 2 years in jail, only for the president to pardon him 8 months into his sentence. So that indicates very clearly that this government encourages lawlessness through corruption, abuse of office, disregard of the rule of law, and poor service delivery. So we've had services like electricity, services have been erratic, road construction quality that is very poor, ferry services, public hospitals, schools, the quality of services are so bad, but nobody is held to account.
Wow.
So this, is the reason why I think what prevails in the Gambia is total lawlessness, and that's what I confronted with. Yeah.
So, Madi, the thing I'm hearing from you, and thank you for saying that clearly to our audience, what I'm hearing from you seems to be a perennial problem with African leaders or African governments. On this show, just last week, we discussed South Africa. And one of the prominent professors in South Africa from the University of Johannesburg was saying something similar about corruption in government in South Africa and even within the police service. The week before that in Sierra Leone, we discussed it. Sierra Leonean activists were talking about corruption in government. And before, I could go on and on and on, my brother. If we are talking about African pan-Africanism, and we're talking about uniting Africa, and we're talking about making Africa one of the best continents in the world, how can that be possible when there is so much accusation of corruption within African governments and people getting things, they committing crimes and doing, allegedly committing crimes and getting away with those things when nothing been done? How can a young boy in Banjul, a little girl in one of the villages in the Gambia, can have any hope?
Well, it will be difficult to have hope, and which explains also why, for example, in the case of the Gambia, we have this phenomenon called the back way. That is irregular migration, where now it used to be like young people, but not even young people. You have even soldiers, you have even police officers, you have people, civil servants, leave their job and travel through the Sahara Desert, across Niger, Mali, towards Libya, North Africa, or through the Mediterranean, the Atlantic Ocean, to travel through to the, Canaries Island and to North Africa, because they have lost hope, in their own country. But not just young people or people, other categories of people, but you even have well-educated people like me and you, who also realize that their own country, like the Gambia or South Africa or Sierra Leone and so on, does not offer them opportunity, doesn't offer them security, doesn't offer them hope, doesn't offer them good life, secure life. Because I'm in the Gambia today, I don't want to be sick, because a certain kind of sickness can kill me simply because the necessary health services are not available. So that, that is a motivation to say, look, let me go to a place where there is quality health care. So the young African, therefore, cannot have hope in Africa. And that is not to mention, all of the other elements, that one can relate to, which are not only pushing people towards irregular migration, but let's look at terrorism. Why are African youth in the terrorist organizations? Because they get easily recruited with a guarantee of $100 per month, or per week. Is enough to entice our young people to join terrorist organizations and into many other things, whether it's crime, whether it's drugs, I mean, if you look at the trend of crime in the Gambia and across Africa, it is young people who are involved, stabbing, burglary and things like that. So, my brother, this is a big issue, and it should concern all Africans, because it should not be. Africa is so endowed in any way you can imagine, to provide the best life for its citizens, to provide security and shared prosperity for all, to provide justice and equality and freedom for its citizens. Now, but this is not happening because Africa, you can see that in each and every country, how we are beset by leadership, poor leadership. Leadership that is not honest, leadership that is not law-abiding, a leadership that has no vision, a leadership that is, cowardly, without the courage to lead their people, to confront the issues, facing their countries. Leadership so cowardly they cannot assume their responsibility in the global stage, and want to remain as secondary, as the underdog, in global affairs, in global platforms, as you can see. So, I mean, rather they have prioritized their own self-preservation, so that at the end of the day they succumb, whether it is to the west or to the east. And we now can see the huge role, China is playing in Africa. I tell people, I was telling people, you go to any airport today, whether it's the Gambia or Abuja or Dakar or Luanda or Nairobi, I mean across Africa, you will find scores of people, teachers, civil society, journalists, public officials, on a trip to China. And through that, China is taking over Africa. All right. Yeah. And why? If China can do, because when did China gain independence? 1947. All right, or 49. I mean, that is what, some 10, 12 years. Ghana gained independence in 1960. In some 15, 20 years, Gambia gained independence in 1965. Or Senegal in 1960, Nigeria in 1960. In Nairobi, Kenya in 1962, and in Sierra Leone 1960. We can look at those things. So within the range of 20 years, China, that is the distance between China and the Gambia, or India and Africa, or Singapore. Let's not even talk about Africa. Singapore gained independence in 1965, the same year as the Gambia. When the time Singapore gained independence, Nigeria was already independent 5 years earlier in 1960. Today, Singapore is a first world country.
Yes.
And how can Nigeria explain that?
Yes.
How can Gambia explain that? How can Ghana explain that?
Yes.
Now, the only difference is simply because Singapore had leadership, that had vision, that had commitment, that made sure they prioritize the interests of their people, and we are committed to it. On the other hand, we don't have that. And that is what is killing Africa until today. So at the end of the day, we have become the laughing stock of the world. We have become the underdog of the world. I mean, the life our people live is a life of wretchedness. I mean, I travel across Africa. I mean, you go to every capital, you travel through every country, you see the backwardness, you see the poverty, you see the unemployment. I mean, you see the just poor infrastructure. All right. I mean, even where they build flyovers and all this big infrastructure, underneath those flyovers and bridges, what you see are poor people parked under there, unemployed, begging, because the opportunities are not there. So this is, and I think Africans, particularly our African intellectuals, our African civil society actors, Africans, whether they're journalists like you, and that is why I love the way you open this program and what you said this program is about, because this is the conversation we need.
Yes.
I think for a long time we are not confronting each other.
Yes.
All right. And speaking truth to each other, and pointing fingers at each other.
Yes.
Because what is happening in Africa doesn't make sense. It is totally unacceptable.
Yes.
All right. And I tell people, I have been in this work for the past 32, 34 years. My brother, if there is anything I can point to as success, it's my own individual success. Yes. Through this work, I have gained enough resources to build a house for myself, to guarantee education of my children, to make sure my children, my family have good life. I have guaranteed that. I have traveled, had meetings across this country, claiming to represent the people, claiming to defend the people, claiming to speak for the people, to protect the rights of the people. And in any of those activities, I get paid allowances, I get paid per diem, I get paid DSA. All right, I get incentives, vehicles, and things like that. I have been to meetings in Abuja, in Nairobi, in Addis Ababa, in Geneva, in New York. All right, across the world, in the name of fighting for the people. And I get paid for those things. And I come back and build my life. But all around me, I see people living in poverty. People who are more hardworking, women and men who wake up early morning, they go into the bush, or they go to the farms. They don't come back until sunset. And I became richer. I tell people my father was working in the village, in the farms for 70 years. He sent me to school. I graduated. Within 5 years, I became richer than my father. And that story, I can see it in the Gambia and across Africa every day. So at the end of the day, what does it tell me? It tells me I was just working for myself.
Yeah.
It tells me the government, state is working for itself. The people in the government, our presidents are working for themselves. Our parliamentarians are working for themselves. Our ministers are working for themselves. And the evidence of that, you open the budget book of the Gambia, of Senegal, of Sierra Leone, of South Africa, of Kenya, of Nairobi, Uganda, everywhere. My brother, what you see are salaries, allowances, incentives, vehicles, cozy offices, travels, healthcare. We put millions in the budget for the health medical treatment of officials who will not build a hospital here to cater for the people, but they can fly to go and get medical treatment in Dubai, in India, in Turkey, in UK, in US. But the hospitals here, people are dying when they should not die from that illness. So it means the state exists for the people who work in the state. The civil society, we exist for ourselves. And this is why I have founded the Edward Francis Small Center for Rights and Justice. To be an accountability body without compromise, to be on the offensive, all right? To refuse those narratives that tell us the cup is half full. We are moving gradually. It is a process. We will get there. Because those are the things we hear our intellectuals say. But, some progress has been made. It is better than before. This regime is better than the previous regime. But at least we have a road here now. At least we have some electricity now. It's a bit stable. You hear those things. But it is all a farce. Yeah, it is all a farce. And in that case, therefore, the African youth cannot have hope. Cannot have hope in this country. That is the tragedy we face in Africa.
Well, thank you, my brother, for going continental rather than just limiting it in with the Gambia. That was so interesting. And I know my audience watching you tomorrow will really agree with you in many parts of Africa. Thank you for that. Now, let's go back a little bit to the Gambia again. The continental perspective is amazing and I love it. And we will be going back and forth on that. But we'll go back to the Gambia because I want to be very respectful of your time. The Gambia as a country goes to the polls in December this year, still governed by the 1997 Constitution, the one written under Yahya Jammeh, the former president. The 2020 draft failed. The 2024 bill was rejected at second reading last July. What does it mean for a country to set out twice, to replace its founding document, and to fail twice?
Because the political will is not there. The leadership is not there. the 2020 draft should not have failed if President Barrow had given it his support, as he had claimed when he established the Constitutional Review Commission in 2018. It failed because that draft constitution made it categorical that a two-term limit would be introduced for president, and the term limit would begin in 2017, and rightly so. And because of President Barrow's lack of political will and his lack of commitment to national interests, he does not wish to be to respect, to agree, to accept that his term should start in 2017, but rather he wants to perpetuate himself in power, and that evidence today is what we are seeing. All right, because the man came in the first place on an arrangement to serve for 3 years, and he had expressed his commitment to 3 years in his 2016 manifesto. He wrote in the second paragraph of that manifesto, in the introduction, that the fundamental challenge facing our country since independence has been self-perpetuating rule. Our first president spent 30 years in power only to be removed by a military coup. The second president, who became a brutal dictator, spent 22 years, and the country nearly went into flames, until ECOWAS had to come to save us from ourselves. That experience teaches us that we need to constitutionalize term limits. And when we should constitutionalize term limits, therefore, there is no sacred cow, there is no special person or citizen. It should apply to everyone, and rightly from the moment the former dictator left and the new dispensation begins, and that was 2017. But because Barrow doesn't want to submit himself to that, did not give the support to the 2020 draft, and so his allies in the National Assembly, 23 of them, have voted against that draft, ending the life of that draft constitution. So that, when we went to 2024, when we got to 2024, he produced a draft that I do not consider a draft constitution. I consider it as Barrow papers, because that draft lacks the legitimacy and the legality, and so I do not consider it a constitutional draft constitution. He and his cabinet sat down without consulting anyone, on their own, drafted a piece of provisions out of the 2020 draft, and butchered it in a way that that draft effectively was designed to constitutionalize dictatorship and corruption as our system of government, because it has limited rights, it has handed over unchecked powers to the president to appoint anyone. It has removed all safeguards against corruption, such as access declaration after leaving office, and so on and so forth. So that draft, if it had passed in 2024, Barrow would become, by law, a monarch, an absolute monarch in this country. That was the very spirit of that 2024 Barrow papers. It would have legalized corruption in this country, because it means I can be appointed as a minister, all right, and I can plunder, steal public resources, and then I leave without anybody checking me, without any declaration of my assets or anybody checking me. It was such a terrible thing they did. And so naturally, it also died. And we are so therefore still stuck with the 1997 Constitution, which is very inadequate in many respects, in terms of good governance, protection of human rights, in terms of controlling power, holding power to account, and so on. All right. And so as we sit now, we don't have any presidential term limits. And this is why
Wow.
that president who said he wants 3 years went for 5 years. He then went for 10 years. And now he's going for 15 years. And if he got the 15 years, he's going for 20 years.
That is so. And thank you really for providing that context for our audience. Given that is the current case, can a December election held under Jammeh's era rules produce a government that Gambians accept as legitimate?
Well, yes, we can. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, not just the 1997 constitution is inadequate. We have a terrible elections law that they also created in 2025, which is more horrible than the military decrees, election decree done in 1996. But it's election, and the onus now is on the citizens of the Gambia. Will they save themselves, or will they submit themselves to self-perpetuating rule? So that for me, with all the challenges we face in our elections, we can have an election that can be legitimate. Because we had that experience in 2016. We know all the malpractices, the abuses of the regime at the time. We know all the inadequacies of the Electoral Commission, and the electoral law. But our citizens went to that election in 2016, and they voted to remove a dictatorship. I think they can do that today also in December. Yes, and if they do so, I think it will be legitimate, act that they would have done.
Okay, so thank you. You have been described as the most loved and the most hated activist in the Gambia. You have had to answer publicly the charge that your position simply tracked the opposition. How do you hold that line? And what does the accusation itself tell us about the political culture in the Gambia?
Our society has become hugely polarized. Which from the former regime, it has promoted polarization, division along ethnic lines, but also along partisan lines and other, sectarian considerations. These things have become more pronounced today, from 2017 to date. Key culprit of that is the ruling government, the ruling party. Not to also forget to say, across the political landscape, even within the opposition, you hear and see a lot of polarizing, divisive, inflammatory remarks, hate speech, and so on. Right? And that is apart from the fact that, as I said, there is immense lawlessness within the state and immense indiscipline within society. It is not just the state that is lawless in this country. The society, members of society also, you see acts of lawlessness, in many, many ways. So if you are in a society like that and you want to, speak to accountability, you want to maintain accountability, you want to demand accountability, what happens is, therefore, you would be hated and loved at the same time. So that when the subject is this particular individual, official, or party, group, if it is against them, they, because that is what happens when you have a toxic political environment. Truth becomes personalized, customized. Every party has its truth. Everyone has his truth, and that truth can be influenced by, tribe, by religion, by, family associations, and so on. So that that is what I am seeing in the Gambia. So if something is wrong, but you raise, like I raise, and it is about the government, all the ruling party and government supporters would consider that to be, that Madi is an opposition and even belong to that opposition party, or Madi wants to, burn down the country, as the president himself said, I wanted to burn down the country at one point, and all other kind of accusations. The Minister of Information just a few weeks ago, some 2-3 weeks ago, was on a major primetime program, radio program, and said, I'm the most unpatriotic Gambian, he has ever seen.
Wow.
So this is what happens. You want to hold them to account, they come in those terms. Yes, I mean, and so I've been caricatured in many, many, many ways. But as they do that, of course, the opposition or others that are on the other side would tell you, oh, Madi is doing great. So every day I receive personal messages. I see people write or publicly places, Madi, you are doing a great job, Madi, you are the best, and all of those things. And I would tell them, look, I'm just doing my role as an individual. As defined of me by the Constitution, by my conscience, and by the fact that I'm a human being. I have my culture, my religion demands me to stand for justice and for the truth, regardless. So I expect everyone to do that than to be calling me Madi Jabata, human rights activist, or Madi, you are doing a great job. I don't need that.
Right. But Madi, I hear your point. But this comes at a cost, though, for you, and you do an amazing job. But for you to be viewed by your own people as the most hated and the most loved, it comes at a cost on you personally and on your family. And how does it even allow? How do you get the courage to keep doing the work that you're doing with all those, accusations, counter accusations against you, and may even have an impact on your family?
Well, I think when I just understood the environment, all right, and many other things, that I believe I'm a human being, I'm a citizen.
Right.
I believe that I have a duty. The purpose is not to adjust to whoever or whatever, and get whatever I can get by any means. I'm not perfect. I have flaws. I have made mistakes, errors, and so on. But I want to take responsibility for them. All right, and so a huge cost comes along. Of course, insults are part of it. And if somebody insults me or insults my mother, I have children, I have family, and so it concerns, it disturbs a lot of them, and they raise these things. And of course, they will also put pressure on Madi. I think you should just abandon all of this and have your peace of mind. But also, you can get, ostracized. You can get, marginalized, by individuals who sometimes could be friends initially, but by institutions, by organizations who feel, they don't want to associate with Madi because, maybe they also consider that will bring a cost on them. And so, and I have evidence, of all of those things. I see all of those things, but I just take it anyway. They also have a right to associate. So I'm not bothered at all. But also I recognize that at the end of the day, I want to live free. Yes, I think at the end of the day, I want to live free, freely. I want to be happy. I don't want to be under the control of anyone, just as I don't want to control anyone. I want to play my citizenship job, and this is where I find value for myself. All right. So somebody can insult me. I don't take it you have insulted me. I just take it that is that person's opinion. That's that person's opinion. But I'm not taking his opinion, and I don't want to live under anyone's opinion. So if you insult me, that is your opinion. You said it because my brother. The point is, if I insult you, all right. Normally, many of us we get angry. All right. Or if I have a very negative view about you, all right, and like the minister said, I'm the most unpatriotic citizen.
Mm.
I mean, one can say, right, when you hear that, you can get disturbed and worried and angry and so on. No, I said to myself, no, I don't have to be, because the minister, this is what is in his mind. Yeah, this is what he wants to say. It is just that he expressed it. So because you expressed it, we hear it. But if you don't express it, that is still what is in his mind. Why should I be worried about what is in your mind?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can sit here. I mean, you and me are now in this conversation chatting. You may be thinking in your mind, this Mahdi is a very stupid man, or is a very ugly man. You didn't say it, but it could be that is what is in your mind.
Right.
Should I be here and be worried about what is in Patrick's mind? No. Yeah.
No.
So if you say it, at least I know you have just said something that is in your mind, and I don't think I want to change your mind.
Right.
You know.
Right.
And I don't want to be angry or disturbed or frustrated, because that means I have submitted myself to you. Yeah. So and I want to be happy. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Absolutely. Well.
People ask me these questions. I mean, how do I deal with these things and so on? I'm not bothered. I don't. It doesn't touch me at all. Yes, I just know, well, there's some guy over there, some woman over there who said this Mahdi is a cockroach. That's his or her opinion. I mean, what can I do? I know I'm not a cockroach, you know. So that's his opinion. So, but I mean, at the end of the day, though, what it just shows is you have a society, and that is part of our problem, where human beings, in the first place, have abandoned, because we should have values, we should have standards, so that even if I disagree with you, it should be, I should be guided by values and standards how I disagree with you.
Right.
So we should uphold those things. But also as a citizen, that you have a duty. You know, what is a citizen? I tell people, what is a citizen? Is it because you are born in this country called the Gambia? You have a passport, you have a birth certificate? Is that all citizenship? You were born in this town, in that village, you went to this school, and you are working in this institution in the Gambia. Citizenship, you know, is more than that. Yeah. So that at the end of the day, I ask people, every day, are you fulfilling your citizenship duty? Regardless of what trade, what walk of life, you know, you are involved in. Are you fulfilling your citizenship duty? So, because I tell people, you know, in this society also, donkeys are born here, you know, cows and you know, cats and mouse, and they're all born in this country. But we don't give donkeys a birth certificate or ID card or expect them, you know. But you and me as citizens, by law, it has said we have these rights and we have these duties. Are we fulfilling those things? Because it is through the fulfillment of those things, you know, that also we are able to safeguard our lives, our future, create opportunities, ensure there is good governance, and have leadership that is accountable to us. And this is why, my brother, I tell people, what the work I do, in the first place, I do not consider it as I'm doing it. I consider it as doing it for myself, because I want to live in a society where the opportunities exist for me to get the means to be able to get what I need to realize my full human potential, to live in peace and security. I don't want to live in a society where people are killed, where people are denied, you know, services, where the services are not good, because it is a threat to my life. So, you know, I want a society where anyone can speak your mind. You want to protest, you go and protest. You want to get healthcare, there's a efficient, quality healthcare, hospital over there. You want to send your child to a good school. You want a community with good roads. You are not threatened by floods, you know, or, you know, burglars, armed robbers coming to you. You don't want that society. You don't want a society where public money is being, you know, plundered by one individual because he's the president or he's the minister. So if you want that, that cannot happen by folding your arms. So as I said, what I do, I don't do it for anyone, so to speak. I do it for myself and for my children. And I expect every citizen to do so, And that is when we will have what we call good governance. You know, and so this is what is happening.
Okay, good. Let's go to the media a little bit here. I know we still have some time here. We can plug in a couple more questions. Let's look at the media quickly, and then we can go to the justice, and then the Gambians overseas, and then we'll talk a little bit about them. Then we can see the Gambia climbed to 46 in the world, and 8th in Africa on this year's Press Freedom Index. That is a genuine achievement on this continent, and yet the Gambia Press Union used World Press Freedom Day to warn that those gains are fragile. How are both of those things true at the same time?
Yes, they're both true. The progress we have made, they call it progress. I don't see progress. But the challenges that the Gambia Press Union highlights are real. You know, my brother, the point is, during the days of the dictatorship, we were like 48, 49, sometimes 50, 51. And so if you come down to 8, you know, or so 10, comparatively, is progress. That's what you will say. I mean, reasonably, yeah.
Yeah.
But I raise the question, why are we not 1, number 1?
Yeah.
Yeah. But why should we be 8 or 50, 51?
Yeah.
Or 10 or 17? Why are we not 1? What is difficult for us to be 1? Because if this country is a republic, it has laws that should be respected. This government, like all the other governments, have ratified international and regional international human rights instruments that the president and public officers have sworn to defend the Constitution, to uphold the Constitution. Now, let us look at what happens in the media landscape. They are arresting journalists. Why? Because you don't like the journalist report. The president, the police arrested a journalist here, Musa Sharif and, Muhammad Justice Dabo, because they reported that the president has identified successor. And the police went to arrest him or them, and then they charged them. And then the president also sent his lawyers to take them to court. Now, if you know our constitution, which the president does, and the inspector general of police, he knows. If you know the instruments that we have signed, international and regional instruments we have signed in relation to the media, and you know journalism, when you read that story, you know that story carries all the elements of fair journalism. So if you are a president or the police chief, what justification do you have to arrest those people?
Yeah.
There's absolutely no justification. But you go and arrest them. So that should not happen in the first place. And this is why you are having number 8.
Yeah.
So you take the case of Data Hydra in 2004. They went and killed him. Why? Because the Data is doing the job of a journalist. In our own constitution, section 208, it says that the role of the media is to hold the government accountable on behalf of the people. And the journalist is doing that. And then you send soldiers to go and shoot and kill that journalist. And because of that, you have your rank is number 51. Now, should you have killed that journalist?
No.
Should not.
Yeah.
All right. So you go and create laws in our laws, the Criminal Offences Act. You create laws there, sedition, false news, false publication. I mean, and you claim to be a Democrat. You claim you want good governance. You claim that government should be held to account. Well, false news. Who determines what is false news?
Yeah.
And then somebody writes a story, and it is a true story. You arrest the person and call it false news because you are the police chief, because you are the minister of information. So clearly, what it indicates is this number 8 that you are celebrating, the government is celebrating, is a shame. Because what is happening should not have happened in the first place. We had expected 2017, this government will go and change all those bad laws, all those bad provisions in other laws that infringe on freedom of expression, freedom of the media. You don't do that. That's why GP is concerned. Then
Yeah.
we have expected that 2017 to date, we would have had security sector reform so that the security services, the police in particular, will not arrest journalists. You failed to do that. We had
Wow.
expected 2017 to date, our president and public officials will submit themselves to media scrutiny. They don't do that, but rather, currently the environment minister is suing another journalist for, for the journalist reporting about corruption regarding timber in our country. If you know you are not involved, the story is out. You as a minister, why don't you write a rejoinder and lay out all the evidence? As a president, if you think the journalist should not write about your successor, the one they said is also is not true, make a public statement. National address, tell them what the journalist wrote. I don't have a successor. End of story. What do you want anymore?
Yeah.
But you don't do that. You go and jump on journalists, and then you have number 8, and you come and tell us we are making progress. How are we making progress?
Yeah. Yeah, great point there, Madi. Great point. So let's go to the justice area here a little bit. And I have so many questions, but we are running out of time here. So I want to remain, again, still respectful of your time here. The former president, Yahya Jammeh, remains in Equatorial Guinea. There is no extradition treaty and no obvious mechanism to compel one. Is the tribunal that may never get its principal defendant still worth building?
Yes, yes and no. I mean, in one sense, it's good we are having this special tribunal to try sort of people. It's not they are not even up to 100 people, and it's a huge amount of money that is going in there, and so I hope it will achieve that objective. Otherwise, it would have been a huge waste of resources. I would have wanted rather we create our own court, local, national courts here, and deal with this issue. And I think we could have done it if the necessary political will was there, from the beginning. But here we are. Now, the possibility of getting Jammeh to this special tribunal, which has a time frame, I think, until 2027 or so, or 4 years, is I don't know. One would have to see that evidence is not there yet. One would have to see what practical efforts the government is doing to get Jammeh extradited. I think they could have achieved that a long time ago, but that is not happening. And I don't see how that will change, particularly if Barrow is returned to power in December. So that I foresee a situation where Jammeh may not appear before this special tribunal, because also there's a political element to it. Because Barrow had first formed an electoral alliance with Jammeh's party, the APRC. That party eventually split into two by hardliners who do not want, Jammeh to make any alliance with Barrow. But those hardliners now who have a number of parliamentarians, a number of them have switched over to join, or maybe one or two there are 5 have switched over to join Barrow. All right. And so the political landscape is fluid regarding that, and that would hugely influence how Barrow, whether Barrow will make any effort to bring Jammeh to power, at least before December. All right. But that is also to say, even if Jammeh is not brought to before this special tribunal before December, the tribunal has not been set up yet. They've appointed a special prosecutor, but so many things have not been put in place yet. Even if that did not happen before December or in the 4 years in the life of the special tribunal, the point is though, someday Jammeh would be tried. Yes, Jammeh would be tried. I'm saying this because we recall the case of Hisen Habre of Chad, who was overthrown, and went to Senegal and I think 25 or 30 years or so, has been living there without being tried. But eventually, another government came and they tried him, and he's now, in jail for his crime. So Jammeh is in Equatorial Guinea. Will he be tried in Equatorial Guinea one day, or will the Gambia government have a government that will take necessary, efforts to bring him here or to bring him another destination, let's say Ghana also. It's open to speculation, but I do not see him before the special tribunal seriously.
Okay.
It will be a pleasant surprise if it happens. Yeah.
Okay. Now let me take you to the diaspora, and then we'll wrap this up. In 2016 rather, the Gambian diaspora was decisive. It funded the opposition, it organized itself, and the online radio stations ran, the running out of living rooms in Europe and North America. They broke the monopoly on information that domestic media inside the Gambia could not even touch. A decade later, with the emergency over, what is the diaspora actually for?
The diaspora for?
Yeah, what is it for? What does it stand for? Because it has funded the opposition, it organized itself, it is very powerful in running radio online from the living rooms in Europe and in North America. Yeah. And the question then is, are they for the government, the citizen? What are they for?
Well, I just to say the diaspora is more or less like the citizens at home. They are also divided along many lines. The ruling party has a strong diaspora presence. The opposition has a strong diaspora presence. But in the diaspora also there's a strong voice for justice, for good governance, for system change in this country. It's a strong voice, for independence. That's an independent diaspora voice. So they are mixed. The reality of the diaspora is that, like you rightly said, they played a huge role in the fight against the dictatorship and eventually in the election of Adama Barrow. And this came also on the back of serious promises and commitments. And key among them is that the diaspora would have the franchise. They would have the right to vote like all other Gambians. All right. Even though our constitution has granted the right to vote for all Gambians, and the Elections Act has granted that right, but the Electoral Commission and the government has failed to put in place any mechanisms to materialize that constitutional right that diaspora have. And it has been a huge campaign point. Barrow himself, as part of the opposition at the time before 2016, that was one of their key campaign points and demands for electoral reforms. And the expectation was that 2017 we would see the franchise extended to the diaspora. And unfortunately, as I said, 2025 we have a new electoral law, and the diaspora has been left out. But not the same, the diaspora continues to be active, not only active in terms of participating in the political process, participating in civil society, but also economically. If I'm not wrong, the largest chunk of our GDP comes from remittances. So diaspora is a huge lifeline for this country. Across this country, families and communities, individuals depend immensely on the diaspora. All right. But of course, there are citizens who should be ready to vote, but that has not yet materialized.
Okay, it's 2 more questions, then we'll go. I want you to speak directly to one person now, right now. Look in the camera, please, Madib. Speak to that person. A Gambian watching you this afternoon, tomorrow, in the evening, who is living in Minnesota or in Atlanta, Georgia, or in Birmingham, Alabama. They want to be useful to the Gambian society, both here and in Gambia, and they do not know how. And they are tired of just being asked for money. Send your money, we'll help, we'll do this, we'll make some changes, we'll help you so that you can be voting in the US. I mean, what should that person start doing right now? And just as important, what should they stop doing?
Yeah, so I will tell this Gambian, first of all, I suppose the person should be aware, but first of all, if he's not aware, to be aware of citizenship, to ask himself or herself, what is citizenship? All right. So that he's aware of his rights and duties, that that beyond just saying I'm patriotic, I love the Gambia, every citizen says that, all right. But what does that mean to love the Gambia? What does that mean to be patriotic? What does it mean? So that if that interrogation, self-interrogation is done, I want that citizen to realize that therefore, to help his or her country, and is to make sure in his or her country there is system change, a system change that is founded on good governance, founded on a constitution, set of laws and institutions that are rooted in republican values and democratic values, so that even if you support a particular political party, any political party, those are the values and standards you need to bring to your political party to demand that at the end of the day, we need to set standards, and we should have expectations of our leaders, of our political parties. So at the minimum, this is what you should do. But at the same time, to realize that in this country, how do I help to empower citizens? And this could be, there are media organizations, so especially investigative journalists doing amazing work. How do I extend support to them? There are civil society organizations doing work, amazing work. How do I extend support to them? All right. But at the same time, how do I reject hate speech?
Yeah.
Divisive politics, inflammatory, incendiary rhetoric, and so on. So that at the end of the day, my brother, what I'll just tell this Gambian citizen, anywhere the person is in the US, is prioritize values and standards. In anything you do, that your patriotism, your love for the Gambia, let it be rooted in the law, in values and standards. Because this is the only way you can produce leaders that will serve you. This is the only way you can create institutions that will be strong and will serve you. This is the only way you can prevent, polarization and threats to peace and so on, and create unity in the country. Now, I think to a large extent, in many ways, I should say, citizens take things for granted. Yesterday or this morning, I wrote a piece on Facebook. I'm active on Facebook because I want to communicate with Gambians. And I said Gambia faces 3 hazards, all right, which have, defined our public consciousness in the way we communicate or relate. We respond to not only the state, but even to ourselves. And these 3 hazards are, we lower the bar. We lower the bar. And so, 2, we take things for granted. All right. And 3, naivety. And I went to explain what all of these things mean. So, my brother, these 3 things, I will tell those people there in America, those Gambians, to look at these 3 things and, against themselves, to see whether they are lowering the bar, even for the politician or the party that they support. Are they taking things for granted, even for the politician or the party they support? Are they being naive so that they are buying narratives, agreeing, accepting narratives without question? So this is what I want to communicate here.
Thank you. And finally, the last question, and then I'll let you go. December is coming, and
Yeah.
there's going to be election. What is the one question you would want every Gambian voter to be asking themselves before they get to that ballot?
I want every government to ask himself or herself, what kind of government do I deserve? You know, um, if you live in this country until 18 years, that is the age of voting and above, these past 18 years, look at the Gambia, look at your life, look at your community, look at your, you know, your living standard and everything else, and ask, is this the Gambia I deserve? You know, knowing the resources, the opportunities, the potentials of this country, knowing the laws, the responsibilities, the obligations of the state, and then looking at what is available to you, services, opportunities, you know, which cut across, whether it's utility or security or transportation and everything else. Ask yourself, is this the Gambia we deserve, especially after 61 years of independence? So that if that is what preoccupies your mind, I want every Gambian from today to look at each and every political party, to look at every candidate, to ask yourself, can this candidate give me the Gambia I deserve? And not only in general terms, but looking at the character of that politician, looking at the character of that political party, the nature and the conduct of that political party and politician, all right, and the government itself, including the government, all right, but looking also at how will they address the specific issues, education, healthcare, jobs, and so on. How will they give me a standard of living that is affordable, and so on. So for me, that's the bottom line. What kind of Gambia do I deserve? I personally, this is the question I ask myself every day, and this is why I do what I do, because I feel this Gambia today, from independence today, is not the Gambia I deserve.
Mm.
Yes, and I deserve a better Gambia, and a better Gambia is possible. And so, every politician, I'm looking at you, I'm listening to you in terms of how can you give me a better Gambia? Uh, the first president has shown that he cannot give us a better Gambia. The second president has shown he cannot give us a better Gambia. The third president, Adama Barrow, has demonstrated amply that he cannot provide a better Gambia. So, who is going to provide a better Gambia? That is what I want every Gambian to ask themselves as they go to the polls in December.
Madi Jabate, Executive Director of the Edward Francis Small Center for Rights and Justice in the Gambia. Thank you for your time and thank you for your courage. It costs you something to keep speaking, and we
Thank you.
do not take that lightly on this program, on this platform. We appreciate everything you do, my friend and brother. We are looking forward to keeping in touch with you. You are a resource that every African country should have in the back pocket, because the work you do, it's a risky job, but it is an impactful job. And keep up with the good work, my friend.
Thank you for the inspiration. Thank you.
There you heard it. That was Madi Jarbate from the Gambia. And welcome back to the Africa Desk Live. Thank you. Just before we wrap up, if you are a Gambian anywhere in the world and you are online, you are watching us, you are listening to us, what do you make of the two guests we had today? Please drop your comment in the in the comment section for us. Let's hear from you. If you're not a Gambian, you are an African. You know, it doesn't matter which country you're watching us from. You are an African. You listen to these two amazing guests from the Gambia. These are our brothers from the Gambia. Let us know what you think in the comment section before we wrap this up. Few things, those last statements Mr. Jarbatet made, they stay with me. I'm thinking through them. Are you lowering the bar in your country? Are you lowering the bar? Think about that statement he made. Are you taking things for granted in your country? on the continent of Africa? Are you lowering the bar in whatever way you can define that? Are you taking things for granted? Are you naive of the reality and the facts on the ground? Naivety, taking things for granted, lowering the bar. Those are powerful comments from Mr. Marty Jarbate. Start doing and stop doing. I've been thinking, about this, the pairing, because this second hour really, it sounded very loud and clear to me. There is a habit in every diaspora citizen, and I include myself in this as well, of treating the country we left as a place that owes us an opinion. We send money, we send commentary, and we go back and forth for funerals, for weddings. We call, you know, relatives and friends, and we do all of these things, and we call that a relationship. What Marty Jarbate has just described is something harder and slower. Citizenship as a Tuesday, reading the bill, turning up for the hearing, asking for the document you are legally entitled to, and asking again when nobody answers. Are you taking things for granted? Are you lowering the bar as a citizen of any of the African countries? Are you naive of the reality on the ground? Think about that. And if that is true for the Gambia in December, it is true for Liberia, which is celebrating its 179th Independence Day tomorrow. As you can see, my heart in my cap here, and you can see my T-shirt. I'm representing Liberia. I wanted to be very respectful of the Gambia for the first and second hours, so that the exclusivity of Gambia is Gambia alone. But I wanted to use this time to talk about that as well. Liberia, 179 years old tomorrow. Are you taking things for granted in Liberia? Are you lowering the bar in Liberia? Are you naive of the reality? Extend this beyond Gambia. Okay? And is it true for Nigeria? Nigeria is a big giant on the continent of Africa. And next weekend, we will be in Nigeria. We will go live to Lagos next week. So, keep the dial here and subscribe to us, subscribe to the Africa Desk. Is it true for every of the 54 countries on the continent of Africa? Is it true? Is it true? Are you taking things for granted in those countries? Are you lowering the bars? Are you naive of the reality? The diaspora is not a wallet. It was not a wallet in 2016 for the Gambia. It should not agree to become one in 2026 as they go to elections in December. As an African citizen, wherever you are, like I mentioned, next week, episode 1154 Conversations, we will go to Nigeria. Nigeria is not an episode you can make carefully enough. 1 in every 5 Africans alive is Nigerian. It is the continent's largest economy in some years, and its most argued about economy in all of them. Its export, its music, its films, its literature, and its engineers to the rest of the world. And it cannot reliably keep the lights on in Lagos. Imagine that. It has the loudest press in West Africa, and journalists who are still being detained for using it. So next week, we ask the question Nigerians have been asking each other for a decade now, with more urgency every year. What is the deal that holds Nigeria together? Who is still getting a good one? And what happens to the rest of the continent if that deal fails? Subsidy removal and what it did to the household budget, insecurity that has outgrown the language of insurgency, a youth population that has already voted with its feet through the Japa wave, and the federation that a lot of serious Nigerians now say quietly does not work. That, my friend, my brother, my sister, my uncle, my aunt, is next Saturday. Same time here, 2 hours. Before I let you go, if this hour was useful to you, the useful thing you can do in return, it costs you nothing, is to subscribe to share the show, to invite a brother, a friend, a co-worker to YouTube, to Facebook, or X. Follow us on Facebook, on X as well. Share the show, share this particular episode to a Gambian worker of yours, or co-worker, or friend, or brother who needs to see it, who needs to hear it, and one person who is not Gambian at all, because that is how a small country stops being a footnote. And if you want to support the work, we are more. Media Organization for Representation and Empowerment. It's a Minnesota-based nonprofit. No guest on this platform is paid, including the one you just heard from. And no one on the side of the camera is either. Everything we build it from the audience, and we build it for the African citizen, for you, the African citizen, for nobody else. We are not funded by any foreign governments, not by any local government, okay? We do not hold loyalty or allegiance to any particular government or any nation, except you, the African citizen, you, the African continent. So please share the show, tell someone about it, that this is your platform. And thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for the 2 hours you spend with us. I know these are precious hours for you. And as a Liberian, wherever you are in the world, you are celebrating Liberia's Independence Day tomorrow. In fact, here in the state of Minnesota, in small Liberia, in the city here called Brooklyn Park and Brooklyn Center, the celebration has already begun. We'd like to say Happy Independence Day to all Liberians around the world. We honor you, we respect you, and do not forget those who stood in front of you, who helped to build the country you call today at home. Until then, have a great weekend. We'll see you next Saturday when we discuss Nigeria. Thank you.
That's the Africa Desk Live with Sematix King Jr. Thank you for watching. Subscribe, follow, or share this with someone who needs to hear it. And join us next week. Same time, same desk. Until then, keep the African heart beating.